that initial chapter of crisis, however, how did we communicate and talk to and care for a really important stakeholder in our company, and that is our team? How do we make sure that they felt safe and protected? The communication was extremely clear. We deliberately made sure that their jobs and their salaries would not be impacted for a period of time, and that I think gave people great comfort as they realized they had so much else to deal with their own families and the change that was happening around them. And I think when we think about caring as well, we've seen this in our customers. As I mentioned, the frontline workforce and the deskless workforce has just seen such an incredible impact from having to work through COVID-19. Primarily for the fact that they don't have the luxury of many of us that work in an office or behind a desk, in that we can work from home. And we did very quickly here at Schedulo, and so many other technology companies did as well. And it's fairly seamless, and I think we're very lucky working in technology. We can pivot and adapt and change, and in this case, all work from a virtual environment and from home. Frontline workers, by their very nature, don't have that luxury. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to install a solar system on someone's roof from the comfort of your home. It's impossible to deliver the majority of healthcare in hospitals and in the home from your own home. So I think frontline work simply does have such a tremendous impact right now because it hasn't had the ability to come and work from home and pivot as quickly as many of us have. For us, that meant giving customers that were feeling the burden and impact of that change the most financial relief, and really understanding how we could work with them through that period to make sure that they were okay and able to return through the various chapters of COVID-19 and their own experiences, but also giving away some of our product for free. How could we use the products on our platform to mobilize and equip frontline workers as effectively as possible so that they were well communicated with, well engaged, and as productive as possible through this period? We have the fortune of working with ServiceMaster Canada. This is a wonderful organization that delivers all sorts of services to people's homes throughout Canada. And one of the leaders there, David Benoit, I think really lent in to this concept of caring within his own team. And as we were talking to him and his broader organization, it was truly inspiring to just see how seriously he was taking the care and responsibility that he had for his team members on the front line as they were going still into people's homes to fix things, to service things, to install things that were really important to them, and keeping them safe. What did they need in terms of PPE and safety and new ways of working in as contactless way as possible? A really inspiring example of pivoting quickly and changing, but really caring first for his team and caring for the safety of the group that he works with. Truly a wonderful organization and great company. The second theme, I think, of leading through 2020 and all of that we've experienced is the importance of communication, collaboration, and connectivity. I think that communication, like our values and like company values, is important all the time. But this year, I think it's been exemplified more than any other through the 7 years that we've been operating here at Schedulo, how important it's been for us to be highly communicative, and what great communication means for us as we work every day. As we moved out of the office and into our homes, how do we make sure that regular communication was happening clearly so that team members felt connected and informed, and not just informed about the security of their jobs or their well-being, but what was going to be the impact in terms of when we were likely to return to an office, or what that might look like, what was available to them in terms of mental health and their own safety as employees. Really fast turns of communication on a regular basis were really important. Myself, one of the initiatives that I put in place as a leader was to establish 15-minute phone calls and Zoom calls with every employee over actually a 6-month period. We've got 170 employees here at Schedulo, so that meant a lot of Zoom calls, and I think I've gone through sort of 1.5 times the number of employees since COVID-19 really set in. But for me, that was a really important exercise as we were becoming more distributed and more remote and working digitally, to make sure I could check in with everybody and listen and understand how they were working through this period, the impact it was having on them, and the unique differences that were really distributed across our team in terms of living environments, pets, their family's health, the communities that they live in, and how they were experiencing it, and what we could do to help support them through that period. I think incredibly tight and deliberate communication in times like this is just so important. And we saw that across our customer base as well. One of the products that we gave away for free during COVID-19 was an ability to communicate at scale through direct messaging on our platform. And this was adopted by a really large number of our customers as they found new ways to engage and communicate with frontline workers, an inherently disconnected portion of the workforce that during COVID-19 felt even more disconnected, and the importance of communication for our customers was incredible through this time. I think one of the constants in technology and running a SaaS company is change, and I think we're always trying to figure out how to adapt to change quickly. And this is the third theme I think I'd love to talk about today. One of the incredibly important things as a CEO or a leader anywhere that I've really learnt to love is the deliberate recognition and acceptance of not only learning all new things and so many different skills and abilities as we sort of grow up as leaders within our companies, but the process of unlearning and recognizing that the things that you get good at and you learn for one period as a company grows and changes and you as a leader change, they may not be the same things that need to get you through the next chapter of growth and the next season as a leader in a company. So an ability not just to learn, but then unlearn and relearn through these very deliberate cycles as companies and everything around us is changing so quickly. And I think this year, that cycle has accelerated, certainly has for me, as we need to figure out and adapt to change very quickly. We have a global team. We have to adapt to the changing needs, not only here in Australia, where I am today, but in the United States, in the UK, in Vietnam, where we have offices. And it looked different across all of those different regions and territories. So how do we adapt and change and make sure that we're communicating really clearly through those changes across our team this year? The ability to adapt was really important for our customers. And a great example of this was Solace Home Healthcare. When we think about frontline workers during COVID-19, there was really no one more important category of frontline workers than healthcare workers. And we have the great fortune here at Scheduler of working with many wonderful healthcare companies as they deliver care in the home and in facilities. But for Solace, delivering care in the home for aged and for pediatrics with children, it was an incredibly challenging time where in many cases they couldn't go into the home and it wasn't safe to do so and their patients weren't comfortable. For them, it meant pivoting from physical in-home appointments to those delivered digitally through telemedicine for a period of time. So we worked together to make sure that they could go through that transition really quickly. And it was an incredible example, I think, of companies and leaders right at the front line as they needed to adapt incredibly quickly to change in order to deliver such incredibly important services for those that are most vulnerable. The last theme that has been incredibly important to us as a company this year, and I think wonderful for myself to observe in our customers as well, is that of rapid innovation. We also surveyed, along with frontline workers this quarter, CIOs and CTOs in large organizations, and across over 2,500 of those that responded, an incredible theme I think emerged where the optimism of the investments that were being made during this season across leaders and technology leaders in particular was incredible. I think as they use this period of intense change and transition to invest forward and figure out, once we get through recovery and into the future, what are the investments that I can make today while we're dealing with disruption anyway that will really set us up for success in the future. When we think about innovation for Schedulo and the motions that I went through as a leader, it was really important to us as a company that we connected very quickly to organizations we were working with or touched and engaged with that were really closest to some of the most important challenges through COVID-19 as possible. How could we get as close to that coalface as we could and innovate and help, if we could, for the greatest impact and positive influence that we could provide? I spoke to a number of different organizations that we felt were really close to some of the really important challenges, but none stood out as clearly as BioReference Laboratories. They are a phlebotomy and serology testing laboratory, and they were faced with standing up testing locations on behalf of state governments, federal government, and municipality governments all across the United States. And a lot of work was coming out of New York as they went through, such a crisis in those early periods of COVID-19 and needed to really lean into testing. They were standing up drive-through testing locations, and the process was really struggling. A lot of people arriving at these locations at the same time, trying to get tested, sitting in their car for 5 hours, and sometimes not even being able to get tested due to the public safety risks that were apparent. And so it became clear that we could extend the capabilities of our platform and provide a solution within weeks that helped BioReference Laboratories and many other, ultimately testing organizations manage the throughput and capacity of appointments at public health scale, along with contactless check-in, so that appointments and the throughput and logistics of these testing locations could run as seamlessly as possible. I'm so proud of the team here at Schedulo and the investment in innovation that they put in through this time, and specifically on this initiative. It was incredible to work with BioReference Laboratories as they not only address this challenge for cities and states in the United States, but also the NBA and their bubble league, the NFL, Major League Soccer, the prison system. Now as universities and schools figure out how to go back and in whatever capacity that looks like, making sure that every teacher and student is tested and safe. It's an incredible initiative that we're just so proud to be a part of. And I think, times like this, innovation and creativity are most important. As I think sometimes it's easy as we're going through times of challenge or times of crisis to lean back and perhaps shrink away from innovation and creativity. And I think that really difficult times like this are just some of the best times to really lean in to many of the ideas that inspired you as leaders and founders or CEOs or technology people to innovate and get creative to drive as positive impact as you possibly can. And I'm very proud of our team, and I'm super inspired by organizations like BioReference Labs that have been able to drive such a meaningful impact in the community during COVID-19. So I hope some of these themes are resonant to you. I wanted to reflect on my own experiences and also the experiences I've observed in many of the companies and leaders that I work with here at Schedulo. I hope that this has been helpful. Thank you for having me at the Future of SaaS. I'm happy to stick around and answer any questions, but I hope you're all healthy and safe, and thanks very much. Bye. Happy to answer any questions. I think, Adam, thank you for sending them through. Your question around innovation, I think, this was something that I spoke to a little bit in the talk just now. I think you do have to very deliberately foster an innovation mindset. I think it does need to come, from as high up in an organization as you can. I think senior leadership really recognizing the need for innovation right now, and then either if they're sort of successful and can foster an innovation mindset themselves and have a track record of doing so, particularly in a technology startup, this is usually prevalent. I think forming a small team and getting back to the basics of identifying very important problems that can be moved on quickly, and then acting on them, almost as scrappily and as fast as you can, was the way that we tackled it. But yep, I do think you do deliberately need to foster an innovation mindset. I think you can hire into this, but I think the time lag and the challenge generally of finding sort of entrepreneur innovation mindset people quickly in order to respond to sort of crises or just periods of challenge, can be difficult. But if you don't have that mindset coming from the top, then it is something I think you need to hire for and then support sort of as broadly and as much from leadership as you possibly can. I think testing for it, like any startup or any idea, I think you have to always treat innovation and any kind of innovative effort as a hypothesis or a thesis that you're developing against. And usually there's pretty easy measures of building a product quickly and then demonstrating sort of early product market fit and adoption and use and sort of problem solving capability, or selling it, right? And I think if you don't define what that hypothesis is at the start of any kind of innovation outset, it's usually a really tough and meandering, maybe even sort of a failing journey. So I think the definition of success really early on is pretty critical when you're doing any kind of innovation. Kelly, you asked a really good question about COVID-19 and the deepening rift, or the rift that already exists, and sort of the impact of COVID-19 that may exist between frontline workers and office workers. I think that this is true, but in the observations that we've made, I think that there have always been rifts and challenges and fundamental disconnects between people that work in an office and people that work in the front lines. And I'll take this from the perspective of a single company, right? How do you build cohesion and sort of bridge a rift or observe any kind of deepening rift between head office and sort of back office workers versus frontline workers? I think that what COVID-19 has perhaps done is given office workers a bit more empathy and understanding and appreciation to what it means to be remote and inherently disconnected. And then how do you implement technology or values and culture and process procedures to bridge that gap? At the same time, I think that there has been more sort of macroeconomic rift deepening for frontline workers. I think, like I sort of mentioned in my talk, this is an incredibly vulnerable and exposed portion of the workforce that has lots of sort of macroeconomic challenges around social mobility and career mobility generally. But I think a lot of the innovation that happens, and maybe some of this alignment that we're seeing between sort of the back office and frontline workers, is a really positive step in the right direction to at least creating awareness, and then ultimately bridging some of that rift and that gap between these two kind of distinctly different portions of the workforce. So I think it's a really good question, and there's a lot of really complex factors to it. But I'm encouraged to see just maybe the enhanced and sort of heightened level of empathy and awareness from office and desk-based workers to what it means to be remote and somewhat disconnected. In terms of the cultural differences across our team, yep, we are a global company, and there have been, I think, pretty distinct differences globally in terms of how everyone responded and approached the crisis. And I think, to a large extent, this is probably reflected in how governments and larger parts of society across these territories and regions have responded as well. I think where our office and team members in Vietnam and Australia have, I think, experienced some of the same fatigue and challenges that team members in the US and the UK have felt. But I think, largely through a lot of the sort of very painful challenge, outside of work, where things are even somewhat returning back to normal, and I think they can lean into sort of the next chapter of post-recovery life. The UK and the US, I think, still have a ways to go, and I think maybe where suppression or even eradication was a strategy in Vietnam and Australia, I think the US and the UK are in the position where a vaccine or other vehicles are going to have to be kind of the trigger points for re-entry into post-recovery life, and that's been a challenge. I think as a leader, it's tough when everybody is going through different stages of this cycle. Can be incredibly challenging to balance all the needs of everyone and approach it in a really equitable way that deals with it fairly and equitably. But good question, and thank you very much for it. Thanks, Carla. I appreciate it. Any further questions, happy to answer them offline if you want to reach out. But great to be here, and thanks for having me.